Thanks to this ex-Mormon post, I found this link to this book. It's pretty interesting. The guy's saying Lehi, page 71 to 85. 71. I went to it alphabetically, so maybe he means PDF page. You would think they would have Naphthalia. Nephthalia is how the Catholics would spell it. Aloha, shalom. So I'm trying to figure out how you would pronounce Lehi. So everything said in this forum is good stuff. Gomorrah, I think I've got that one. Captain Kidd, classic argument. Why are they so fixated on it? This guy comes up with 3 really good apologist responses. Irrational. It's like these people are tuned into something, and it's polemics. We're the only true and living church. That pisses people off. Page 205. Is it page 205 of this? So he's saying John Walker. So this would have been available. Pronunciation guide. The Blue Letter Bible is a pronunciation guide by Webster that I found last night. This is one. This isn't the original Blue Letter Bible pronouncer. So it's just going to list words. It's like a spelling book for a spelling bee. If you were only intelligent and knew the difference between reality and realty. So, what is this about? Are these the contributors? So if you haven't heard of the Vonich manuscript, it might be encrypted, it might not, but no one's translated it. I guess this is teaching you how to spell. Computer scientists, it's a nice problem in computer science because you have internal dialogue and without an external key. It's pretty hard to translate. Okay. So let's look up Horan. We're in P. It's P-A-H. There's Padua. No porn. How about Nephtali? Nephthys. Nephalia. Nephel. Nephrite. This is related to the kidney. Find it in the dictionary. It's obviously in the Apocrypha. So I'm not getting caught up into the battle for who's right and wrong. But there's some interesting learning that could go on here. I'm trying to to figure out how, in that time, if you had the letters Lehi, beehive, beheight, behind, Lehi. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Knee-high, Lehi. I'm pretty sure at the point there was a Lehigh, Pennsylvania. But look at this one. Mole Hill has Lehigh in it. Lolhi. Lolhi. So they wrote a bunch of stuff, including the words of Lehi. They included some stuff about Abraham, included the genealogy of Lehi. It included lots of interesting stuff. His spiritual name was Lehi. So I'm going to conclude that his name changed. So I was going down the Liahona path. And one question I have is, could the letter R and the letter N be swapped? Could have been a transcriptional error. You read these philologists, they all the time say these swaps occur. So I searched for Leah. So we obviously have Leah, the one with beautiful eyes, but Rachel has a beautiful body. So he loves her more. Eliab, Eliathan, Elia. So this Leah is occurring, and the Leah is just those two sounds, Leah. So I can search for just that, Lee. And it happens all the time because it literally means, from my understanding, Lee. The L is the word to, just the I, which also is island, E. But you see how island is spelled? It's I-E. I-E is island, technically. This is a silent, guttural sound, okay? So, Genesis 3:12, to me. To is the L. E, which is the yod, is me. Me is also island, if it has the aleph at the beginning. My island. To me island. Lee. Lee. To me. Lee. To island. So this one, I'm going to put an A there because of that. To me, to island, to me. Liahona. Leah. Directed toward the island is the purpose of the Liahona. Ora is away. Derek also means is away. Should the R be the clue? Is this a clue from Nephi about the confusion of the language? Lehi, Lai, Leah, wordplay. Ona, is it Ora, not Ona? There is a Jehonah Bob. It says Jehovah is willing, is giving, will direct your path. has impelled you, if you look carefully at 3082, is noble or is liberal. This liberal idea is coming out, noble and liberal, has impelled. This is the definition of impel. To drive or urge forward, to press on, to excite to action. We were thinking about leaving, and then a Liahona appeared. And then the 1828 dictionary has the word a ball. Look at this. A ball is impelled by the force of powder, a ship impelled by the wind. One of the meanings of Nephi is wind in your sails. There was urgency here. He left behind his primary treasury. So I was reading this again. Part of Lehi's name is about to the islands we go. The story begins in the year Zedekiah became the king of Judah. When he was anointed king, Jeremiah could have anointed him as a young child. But he didn't become king until his brother was king, and then the other family with the family tree there, they were put in kingship, and then finally he's put on the throne. So it goes through several brothers and a grandson even, before it goes back to this guy, the uncle, Zedekiah. Zedekiah was placed on the throne from the north. That's the opposite of Egypt. Lai clearly has some ties to Egypt based on just the language they speak. So he heard something, he went to his house, he saw a vision, he read a book. Lei, Spanish, I read. He read a book. He praised God because part of what he figured out is God's going to send him to an island. He wrote it down in his own book. So there's quite a bit about the prophecies. So how long was he prophesying? Was he prophesying for years, like Jeremiah? Or was he prophesying for some short time? Some of the prophets said this means nothing, it's a good sign. There's signs in heaven. Halley's Comet went by probably 616 BC. 607 BC, I think they're down in Salala and Bountiful, and there's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse or something, and I think that reminds Nafi that, oh, God wants me to get back to work. He told the Jews they were wicked. He tried to teach them. They became angry. They have a history of becoming angry. They wanted to kill my father. God spoke to Lehi in a dream. Take his family and leave. I think there's some urgency here. He left behind his house. He didn't go and get everything. He left behind his land of inheritance. Did he get a bigger portion of his inheritance because he wasn't one of the lost tribes taken away? So was he part of the tribe of Manasseh, but kind of the lower class of Manasseh? So he wasn't a big landholder. And then Israel in the north gets taken away. By taken away, that means the rich get taken away. And that king probably took him up towards the Black Sea. It looks like he's going with Prisa here. He's in a hurry. They traveled nearer. Yoder means more near, more of something. So with this sense of urgency, I think he was able to convince his sons Laman and Lemuel. Laman and Lemuel aren't married. These boys must be really close in age. Some of them may be twins. spoke to Laman, oh, that you might be like this river, continually springing forth righteousness. It was probably a wadi that's not perennial. He was probably being a bit facetious. Oh, that you might be like this valley, firm and steadfast, immovable in keeping the commandments. The valley that feeds the mouth of the Red Sea is made out of sand. The wise man, foolish man, built his house upon the sand. The mouth of the Red Sea. To me, that has to be Liahona. So you're near the mouth of the Red Sea, the very first wadi. You pitch your tent. That plain is huge. While you're sitting there, you could explore that plain. You have to cross the wadi if it has water in it. But for a young man or someone that wants to explore, you can. You probably pitched your tent on the one side, so you don't have to cross the river. And you're still close to Eliot, close to civilization, but you're up in the hillside a little bit, next to a freshwater well. I don't think you're drinking the water out of this river, this wadi. Especially when I know there's a well just up the hill, next to the Seir mountain. And that's where Nephi probably went first, is the Seir mountain. And this valley had a marker, a pillar, a column of Solomon that said, Moses crossed the Red Sea right here. So when Nephi's saying to his brothers, I know they crossed the Red Sea, because when they're sitting there hanging out, figuring out what to do next, they went exploring along that valley. And they're like, oh, look, there's a pillar. Oh, look, this is where Moses crossed the Red Sea. As brothers, they could challenge each other. You know, because we did this together. And so I don't think Lai was a spiritual man his whole life. So he may be very facetious and sarcastic here. His sons are complaining, so he's going to mock them. Oh, that you be like this valley, firm and steadfast. And it's a sandy shore. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. Oh, everyone has to be sober and sincere. So he left behind the gold and silver. He was in a hurry. He confounded their murmuring. He was just as witty and sarcastic as they were. He had dwelt in the tent, and it came to pass that he had a tent. One night, God spoke to Lehi and told Lehi to continue his journey the very next morning. The next morning, my father arose. He went to the door of his tent. There he discovered a round ball on the ground. It astonished him. It had curious workmanship. It was made of fine brass. The ball had two spindles inside. One spindle pointed the way we should go into the wilderness. I would call it the Liahona. Okay, so he had a dream that they needed to go. He didn't need a Liahona. The Liahona was there to convince other people. So let's just say that his wife is pregnant. And they're sitting next to a well of water. They're close to Eliot, and she's pregnant. Is she going to want to go anywhere? Oh, but now there's this Liahona, and it says they need to go. We gathered up our things, at least everything we could carry. We had seeds of every kind. We're at the borders of the land of the Levant, Eliot, Akrobar, whatever you want to call it. We gathered up everything we could. The remainder of the provisions God had given us. They came with something, some sort of provision. We crossed the river. So the women probably had never crossed that river. The boys are probably running here and there. We traveled for 4 days. Let's say she's pregnant. You only traveled for 4 days.
You got to a place, there's water, but now you're a little bit more secluded in the wilderness, but you're at an important place. You're at Shazer. You're at the Mount of Almonds. You're at the true Sinai, where Moses was transfigured, where Yeshua was likely transfigured, where Muhammad was likely later, Joshua, Elisha. You're standing in a holy place. Do not move. We get to this holy place. We get food. We had a successful hunt. And then I added this because I believe this should have been a new paragraph with the paragraph advising things. We again broke camp and continued our journey in the same direction. They had to be here at least 40 days. Purification of a woman after birth of a son. Why didn't Nephi share all of that? Because his father would. And this story that Nephi is telling is for his children. And to me, this shows there's a super. Okay, children, tell me what you remember about Shazer. Oh, Shazer. Nazi, Nadi, Nabi, Nabi. The Z triggers certain words. The Shah. Seraph. I'll say Seraph. There's a snow imagery here. Twisting of an envelope cord around a child's neck. There's something going on in the heavens. There's signs in the heavens. 600 years after a birth, something is going to happen. Oh yeah, 600 years after Noah was born, something happened. Everyone was hungry, even my father could. So when you talk about hunting, you can hunt collectively or you can hunt as an individual. I'm pretty sure Nephi was hunting as an individual. And a lot of times the research shows in hunter-gatherer societies, the individuals get more and more successful. Something changed on the Liahona. The writing changed. And there's two pointers. You don't understand what the two pointers are. I went to the top of the mountain. Mount Kali. He's a little beard, little mountain goat. Next, Ishmael died. We buried him in a place called Nahum. Huge markers there. How did Ishmael die? How long do you mourn before you keep moving? So if you died in a fight, in a war, with some Gadian type robber, there's an Isaiah scripture that says Tema comes to the rescue of people traveling in the wilderness. So we lost the main story of Liahona. But there's enough blues clues here to piece it together. And so I'm going to go back to. So Liahona should be RBN. Is this a clue from Nephi about a marker on how the languages can be used? Lai, Leah, you direct my path. Sweet, Lord. Lamed is a prefix to or for. So I was looking for Allah, which is going to be hard to find to the island of Ayal is a deer or a ram. stag. So he might have been like Nephi. He might have been the great outdoors hunter type. And he's just aging out. So right here I would expect to lament. So funny. To lament. There's something about an oath. Since it's usually bad. So that would be a word play on possibly his former life before his conversion. Maybe he laments how he taught his children. Some of these important word plays are big word plays. To be tongue-tied. I'm just looking for the one that says to sprout forth. Light, I'll just spell it into this dictionary. Understand? I'll put this in the okay. Put it on the side again. So I'll put the one stuck in the form. To be or not to be, that is the question. To, I am, to be. There's the R that came to pass. He might be a bookend of to be. So here's the prefix there. Man can be from, to spring forth from a man, from a king. I would pronounce it as mom, as a standard word. And then put a special thing at the end. I will, he will, to the will of God, to the will of God. And Noah began to be a husband. Aish is a husband. Is Nephi a husband? Aish is a plurality.
Yahel.
This is
Lai kind of backwards. To commence or begin is like bookends. He read from the book. Maybe his name was a
Yea.
Lay. Why did I have this open? Oh, I was going to look for how you would pronounce Lehi. This is the important scripture for me. The river islands, La-I-E, and then they put an M on the end. To me, the M means from, but they're also saying it's a plural. So get rid of the M, and it's Laim, Lai, Lai, 2 islands. Laim, even with the M. There's a metaphor. To the islands we go. And then I put that in here. It says, go to hell up here. Threaten and islands of islands. That doesn't surprise me. Bite me. threaten me. A fountain of garden, a well of living waters, a stream from Lebanon. Blow upon my garden. This is uninspired. It means life. To live. To truly live. To suck out the marrow of life. I found a version that would say, cheers. Like, to life. A toast to life. Here's to life. Here's to life. Play on words.
Lahai.
Cheers to life. So somewhere I had read anachronisms of the Book of Mormon, and I think there was a Lehigh, Pennsylvania nearby or something. And so it's fun to quickly go down and look at this. Joseph Smith's senior first vision, Lehigh's vision, very similar. Indeed they are. Exactly where Lehi landed, 30 degrees south latitude, La Serena, Chile, which isn't Valparaiso. Valparaiso is 25 degrees. Did they have the same dream? People are waking up, and it's just they're spending their energy on the wrong things. Their vector's off just a little bit. But why do people that are anti-Mormon spend so much energy with it? Because it resonates in their hearts somehow. So this was an interesting find. Gives a speech to an Indian. So this is an apologist telling a very nice Joseph Smith's most awesome. Joseph had an ox killed for the Indian tribe, and they were furnished with some horses, and they went home satisfied and contented. They killed an ox. I wonder if it was castrated. So you got all the apologists flooding the zone with, look at all these names, you couldn't have made that up. $188 unexplainable names. Gidgidone is Egyptian for thou hast said, shall I live. Thoth, the name of a god or the god. Aha, ow, pharaoh, warrior. Sam means Shem. So it's interesting that I found this one. Oh, I'm afraid it's an ex-Mormon. Shiver my timber, shiver my soul. Yo ho hee ho. This is all good stuff. It's all enlightening. Someone talks about F1Qs. Is that Joe Smith? Spencer W. Kimball, Mark E. Peterson. Don't marry a black man or woman. People just love to get in the muck and mire. As long as they're in bikinis and they're two women, I don't mind watching. Well, that's me in this world. In an ancient American world, why would they have clothes on? So I didn't find Lehi or Nephi in here, even though they claimed I would. But one of the reasons I was doing what I was doing is to find out the language of Joseph's day. I don't know how they would pronounce his name. Lehi. So this would be a wordplay. Lai, 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 I, Lai, Lais. I think that's an S, not a sh. No, that's Laish is an old lion. I went through the Lili thing. I've seen this 3 times recently. I've had 3 reads in my life. Bruised reed shall not break. My patriarch, I had Reed Benson, my Book of Mormon teacher, my freshman year. His father was the prophet, and of course we read Curse of the Book of Mormon and Beware of Pride. The islands, the river islands, to Ain, Laim, Laim. So I'm just looking, because if it starts with this, like this could be La to Aharim, the living waters, high places. We already went over that. To life, cheers. He left in a hurry. Need drives him, Lord of the Rings. There's a name change. God saved him. God sent him on a mission to be like Noah. He was going to be a vineyard. Nephi took that role. Lai's job was to get them to the island. That was his calling, to the island. Nephi's job was to build nation. Lots of tribes, but nation. Okay, so I think I finished this. I'm going to just knit it so it'll open up. So one of the things I'm doing intentionally with this is trying to show you that different analyses can lead to different interpretations merely based on the assumptions you make with preparing the data. So this is showing the letters of the alphabet A to Z. So all of this is me creating the data frames. And this one took maybe 8 to 10 to 12 hours to run because this is the wrong programming language to do it in. But now I have my full data set. I can read it in. It's cached. I can read it in. And then I'll just do a subset. Full means it's anywhere in the word. It's of one length, so it's just the letters of the alphabet. So 1 of length. It's full. I'm subsetting. And then I'm creating each, both as a document, old as a document, new as a document. So I could grab all sorts of literature. These are 2 dictionaries 16 years apart. They should be very similar. And then after I have this code, I can just copy and paste the code over and over again, or eventually I could write a function that would just take care of all of this and do all the analysis. So this is showing in both the letter A in any position appears that many times. So H-clust, notice I transpose the matrix and then I scale it, and then I take the distance and then I H-cluster. E seems to kind of be its own thing. A and I go together. The vowel, these are kind of like the cool kids over here. And then VKW, very not popular. J and Q are together, which I like because J is a new addition to our alphabet, our language. Q is very uncommon. X and Z go together. So now I can do this bar graph, and you can see they're on the same line. They're the same dictionary. There is no difference in language here. And I say that because look at this variance of this first dimension. E in this first dimension is on one end. Z is the furthest on the other end. This is just popularity. Z is the least popular. These are probably least popular. I'm assuming Q is embedded in this noise. So what is up and down telling us? It's telling us something. It's telling us that E is in one direction with T and R, and ING, Dingleberry, is in another direction. This explains very little of the variance. Now, this is important because our DNA is like this. Almost all of our DNA is the same. So then how do you try to find meaning in the variances? Because they're just doing this. They're doing some form of these things. It's not hard to understand. So then I did a scale of a scale. Look at this. I scaled the scale. So this scale is using the IDF approach of scaling, natural language processing scaling. When you change scale, you're looking at it from a different lens, a different perspective, and you're trying to see if some of the patterns are the same. Are these still the cool kids? It looks like the C and the L used to be over here, and now they're over here. But I could just be reading that wrong because of my memory. X and Z are still together. J and Q are still together. By changing scale, you can see differences. Okay, so this is full. Two letters anywhere in the document. And so this shows you AA does appear next to each other, not very often. And technically there should be 26 times 26, or 600 and some. I don't think there's that many. Okay, I just have too many. What are you going to interpret that with? Think about DNA when they do this. They literally do that with DNA. This is interesting because this blob in a two-dimensional space to some degree represents normality. This is the normal. And then what's abnormal? ING, IN, NG, ED, LY. These are actually endings, but they're so popular they're coming up in both. So in what I called full, there's no discrimination on where it is. It could be anywhere. That's what the underscore before and after means. Slight differences here. We got the ED. Now we got UN, which would probably start at the beginning. In, probably at the beginning. So you do have this in that's an isolate here. Same thing, I've made some changes. Now there's a little more variance explained here at this dimension. NG, TE, ED, these look like endings. So I would assume these are not endings, but I could be wrong. Notice this one explains all the variance in that one dimension. Very little is being explained in the other dimension. Okay, so now this one is, I believe, start. Yeah. And I could have gone up and looked at the frequencies, and I could have scaled them by percentages. That's another way to scale them, is take the sum of everything. What percent is A? So this is starting. So C has 6,000. S has 6,000. So C and S are bigger than A. C and S. So this H class isn't giving us that information, that C and S are bigger than A. They're telling us something else. There's A, there's C and S. C and S is kind of this dimension. A is this dimension. Because again, there's very little variance being explained. And then I'm assuming these are the non-cool kids. X, Q, and U is kind of weird by itself too, because it could just mean unimproved. Un. It almost looks like this spells England. So this one's interesting because it puts the C and S together. This one groups A and P together. X, Y, and Z together doesn't surprise me. Q, J, and K. These are like the last 3 letters added to our alphabets. These are recent additions. X, I think, has been around a long time. I still see England there. Okay, so this is a start of 2. Starts a word. Aardvark, probably, or something. AA. I think it's ironic. I don't think aardvark was a thing back then. AAM, ironical. This is in all. So I have 3. You always want to go back and filter through and check your work. Make sure you didn't make an error. So we got kind of its own thing. This would be an interesting graph if I could see it. This is how they determine how language families are formed. They just use this technique and they say, oh, this language is closest to this language based on this data we put in and these assumptions we put in about scale. This ball, very natural. It's almost 100%. There's very little variation. The variation, co. Notice co. It's a different organization because it's a different orthogonal projection, but it's kind of the same. And notice we got co here. That's all we can kind of see there. In, D, re, un is up here, and co is down here. Very little variance in that direction. So this is kind of possibly popularity because these are popular. And I intentionally remove and just show old and new and get rid of the one in both because both is saturating the data to some degree. It's also giving you variability with both 99.8, 98.4 because both are in there. So then I could take the Book of Mormon do the same thing here, add it as a feature. I could take James Fenimore Cooper, The Last of the Mohicans, do it. So not only can I compare documents, I could maybe try to understand what's going on with these biographs, which to me is going to help understand what is going on with language, with sounds. Because if you collect up to 5 grams here, I didn't show all of them, but if you follow the notebook, you can just copy a block, subset differently, and do all of it as your heart desires. Liahona, direction, guidance, way to be Captain Jack Sparrow. Words. You don't think the heavens there aren't breaking or nothing. We gave you that movie, Captain Jack Sparrow, Captain Moroni. How is it that when we've studied as Mormons, the Book of Mormon, we haven't put it completely in context of river travel, river ocean? And sometimes I think up in heaven they're kind of doing an A/B test. Like, oh, let's try this out. Let's give him this information, see what they do with it. So let's have a man grow up fatherless with a widow for a mother, and then let's put him in charge. And let's see if he will live pure religion on the father to take care of the fatherless and the widowers. A/B testing. No, we tried that. That didn't work. Oh, let's do this sexual revolution of the 1960s and see if that would wake them up. They seem to follow the world. Oh, all in this one thing. Make it forget. There's sheep following the world and everything. So let's create the sexual revolution, have them open their eyes about sexuality. You know, we read some of this stuff so seriously. I was reading Liahona. I rested in the land of Bountiful for many days. My understanding of Bountiful has changed since I wrote this. I rested. What is resting for me? Sitting around doing nothing? Or is the responsibility off his shoulders to make sure there's food and water so he can do what he wants to do, which is probably being a curious cat, going collecting seeds and learning a bunch of stuff. What is he doing here? I rested in the land. Where's 17:7? just messy. Wow. It doesn't say rested. See that's me at that point thinking one thing. And right now I'm thinking he wasn't resting. He's probably going up to the frankincense myrrh trees, cutting them up, harvesting that, taking it to the free market in Bountiful, and making a bunch of money. He's possibly saying, "Hey, Dad, can you take care of my wife for a little bit? I'm going to go on a trip." Probably gets on a boat, sails to India and back for a season. So I do know at 607 BC there was something that happened in the heavens. I think it was a solar eclipse, but it could have been a lunar eclipse. Maybe I should go through and do that video. So 600. So I think minus 600 is the ones that I would be interested in. That's the wrong side. There it is. It's right there. 607 BC. Would this say, oh yeah, God wants me to do something? 641. That's out of range. 635. This would have been in range. 641, 635 would have been in range of Lehi's life. 556. Too far gone. 587. 596. This event could have happened at Shazer. That's the central point of the annular. Shazer is right there. And this is just in that window. It could have happened when they were traveling through the wilderness. 635. I think they would have seen a solar eclipse at some point, and so I believe Halley's Comet went through at 616 BC based on the physicists and their best calculations. Look at that. What is that? 640 BC. 587 BC. Different time window. Yeah, so Josiah, he changes his mind. These are the zeniths. Remember, a solar or a lunar eclipse, it can be anywhere in the world, and you're going to see it because the way the moon is opposite the sun and rises. There's a 622. Don't look up. Oh, you're just a soothsayer. I've been in the land of Bountiful for the space of many days. You need to build a ship. After the space of many days, I've seen a bunch of ships. So he's been in Bountiful for many days, and he hasn't lit a fire yet? Did he create cannibalism by having people eat raw meat? Our brother is a fool. He thinks he can build a ship. The brothers are looking at all these ships. They're like, our brother thinks he can build one of those. I think Nephi has, you're not smart enough. I think he's an artisan. So for me to say he turned the beginning of his first Nephi into a word flower, and he did this artistic thing, I think he did because he was an artisan. He took what he could out, he gleaned what he could from Isaiah. I don't think he was a linguist by any means. You read this, he goes on word salads, and the word salad could be because he wanted to write something down. He couldn't because God said, oh, don't write that down. Or he's like, oh, let me tell the children about this. He's like, oh, that's not important. I don't think he was a Shakespeare, but I think his first paragraph he had thought about for a long time because that's what artisans do. They seek perfection in whatever they do. You're crazy. Your heart is full of foolish imaginations. You're just like our father. Every time a woman has a baby, you gotta wait 40 or 80 days. 8 years is a long time. 8 years, 8 days. Was this answering the oath, the God oath, to prep them? They had to learn to be hunter-gatherers, sort of. I think they also had to learn about the South Arabian language, because I think they would have encountered some people that were readers, may have helped them understand some things. Who knows? We know the children of Israel were in bondage. How do we know? You know, brothers, we were sitting there standing looking at that pillar. We know where the Red Seas were divided. You know the children of Israel crossed on dry ground. You saw the pillar that Solomon put up. How can he say you know that? You know that Moses smote a rock. There's a place called the Rock of Moses in Saudi Arabia. They went by it. They saw it. They didn't have to go 40 years, they went 8 years. They went to the caves of Jethro, likely. And this is the most important thing that I think people don't remember. We're not anti-anything. Anti meaning against anything. Anti could mean tribe. And then we are possibly Antichrist, the tribe of the anointed. The children in the land would not have been destroyed if they were righteous. They were a tree. You're the vine. You're not supposed to kill the tree. So did he actually say more choice in 1734? More choice. So what I've learned so far is there's just one word called yoder that means more. And I think this is an important lesson that he's teaching his children. We come here to give you a message, to help you, to teach you, to let you live and grow. If you're being oppressed by another tribe, we will protect you, we will teach you. And that other tribe isn't any worse than you. It's just that they're not wanting to look to God. The proof of the Messiah. Don't rejoice that Ahaz is dead, because from his loins will come the great set-off, Yeshua. He's getting some rhythm here. God commanded my father to depart to the wilderness. Some of the unrighteous Jews wanted to kill him. You also wanted to kill him. You're murderers just like they are. This is coming from someone that cut off Laban's head. And I wonder if the brothers were a little bit leery of this idea of, wow, have they ever killed a man before? I've never killed a man. It changes you. I know it does. From my friends that have. You are beyond defeat. Can't be true. There's a typo. The voice of thunder, earth to quake. Is that part of Shazer? Was there an earthquake? Was there a volcanic eruption? Again, he's kind of going down this path of shared memory with his brothers. You know, they wanted to throw me into the depths of the sea. You can step on but not break a dried reed. What does that mean? I needed their physical labor. So this is where I think he came up with some technique to move dirt. He was a dirt boy. Remember, swords into plowshares. Isaiah. He's thinking about eventually how is he going to launch the boat. But I think Nephi internally, to some degree, thinks he's done. He's definitely a limbic learner. He works with his hand. He's out in the wilderness. It doesn't ever seem to me like he stammers. He can hold his own and line upon line. He becomes very, very intelligent. Look at all the things he did from an innovation point of view in ancient America. He planted the forests. He raised the earth mountains, works of South America. He created terra preta, likely, which turned the fluvial, the river soils, which are not very nutrient rich, into a very rich likely through some sort of waste management go green thing where you'd have these big pods, you'd put all your garbage in it, you'd put your feces in it, you'd put it on a boat, take it out into the field and smash it. And then a generation later you would go out there and grow crops on it, or however long later. We stocked it with seeds, 1806. And whatsoever things we brought with us. Did someone decide to bring a leopard or a jaguar? The remaining space was stocked with personal possessions prioritized by one's age and one's relationship to Lehi, I would think. Then we boarded the ship with our wives and children. We set sail. Nephi went in the sails. We traveled for many days on the sea. The winds drove our ship. I would feel like they would have made some land before they frolicked. They would have had some positive stopping, getting water, getting back on the ship, and then they began to frolic. I spoke to them with soberness. I was afraid God would get angry with us because of their behavior. Maybe Nephi was too uptight at this moment. I've always thought about what the book of Laman and Lemuel would sound like. So when it says violent winds drove the ship back, this makes me think it might have been a shunting rather than a true sail. Four days. My parents were advanced in age. So subtract 8 years from advanced in age. Oh, people only lived until the age of 40 back then. You're taking averages based on all the child deaths. What was the median age? If they made it past 5 years old, how old did they live? And after many days we arrived. We disembarked from the ship, we pitched our tents and called the place the Promised Land. And we did till the earth and we planted all of the seeds. Well, later he says he has seeds. So when he says all of the seeds, does that mean all of them or all varieties of them and some of all? Does that mean every seed he had he planted, or a little bit of every one type of seed he had he planted? It says what works, what doesn't work. And we did find many beasts on the land. We encountered cows and oxen. That's the same thing, isn't it? When he says oxen, are there castrated animals there? Horses, donkeys, goats, and wild goats. That's a list. I think that's what he brought with him. Cows, oxen, horses, donkeys. He brought goats, but in the wilderness they had found the ibex, the wild goat, and many other wild animals that would benefit man. Did he bring a leopard? Did he bring a jaguar, an once, the panther? Did he bring a lion? That's one idea. There were many beasts in the forest. Is that a separate idea? So we encountered could imply we had these things. Encounter. An antagonist. We're reading that like he discovered. And wilderness is midbar, which is the good land. Sometimes it could have been desert. There's really no encounter. Like I'm thinking this is all battle related. No, here it is. To meet face to face. To meet in mutual kindness, Shakespeare. It doesn't, I don't think it says to discover. Where are we? 1825. We did find upon the land of promise, as we journeyed in the wilderness, that there were many beasts in the forest of every kind. And we did find. So discover is there. So again, the evolution, I could be wrong. Seek you shall find. But then again, could I be right? Would bringing a young calf, a young horse, a young donkey be a seed of all types? According to them and their traditions, would that be a seed? Especially when he's in Bountiful and seeing that they're transporting goods. They're transporting live animals. So this is the nature of stepping into the darkness and shining a light. You walk away saying, maybe, maybe not. I could go either way. I'm not going to get caught up debating the anachronists about this. I'm not going to worry about it. But when I sat and pondered this and spent a lot of time thinking about this, I could see how the word find and in his language how that could possibly mean they had brought some of the animals with them and put them in the forest. Remember Isaiah, the wolf shall lay down with the ox in the forest, the cow. And somewhere it was written in great detail what had happened. And so if you're teaching your children It's like, let's list the animals. And where did they come from? Where did the cows come? Oh, you brought those. Where did those come from? You brought those. Oh, those are the ones you found in the desert on your way here. What about these other wild animals? Oh, you were bountiful. And you could easily exchange frankincense and myrrh, which was easy to gather, for what other animals you wanted, just like Solomon had all these animals. And there were many beasts in the forest. Are these the natural animals of the region? So here, he's not saying it's a prophet. Here he's saying it's 600 years according to the words of an angel. Prophets. So the angel must have said the prophets had said that? That's just new to me. The God of our fathers will be the Messiah, the God who led our fathers out of Egypt. He will be lifted up on a cross, according to the words of Zenock. He will be crucified, according to the words of Nehum. He will be placed in a sepulchre, according to the words of Zenos. A sign given to those who inhabit the islands of the sea of his death. 3 days of darkness on the islands of the sea. And that's possible. But I'm starting to think the whole world, all the islands of, all the kings of all the islands, says the mother, the great spirit of Mother Earth, however that went. The signs and seasons, Genesis. May God bless and keep you. Amen.